In this video, I'll be talking about how can you use Amazon Security Hub alongside with Amazon Macie to identify and visualize those potential risks against your S3 buckets, and also how can you take the actions proactively to remediate that. This is the part 2 video around how can you use the Amazon Macie to detect the attacks against your S3 buckets. If you haven't watched the part 1, you can click the link down here, which is regarding how can you enable the Macie, and we actually walk you through a demonstration around how can you enable the service and also define the custom identifiers and working alongside the managed identifiers predefined by AWS to working towards a security remediations. So just a quick recap for what we have done for the video in part 1. In part 1, we have enabled Amazon Macie as a service. We also defined the custom managed rules to do the pattern matching based on the policy that we defined. We also working alongside managed identifiers to identify those risks using the rules predefined by AWS. In this video, we'll be focusing on using Security Hub to visualize those data findings created by Amazon Macie, and we would see how can we take the actions using the integration between the Security Hub and the other native service from AWS, such as AWS Lambda, to take the remediation actions. Let's look into that. Before you can use Amazon Security Hub, you have to enable the service. So now we have been on the Security Hub service console, and as you can see, the summary information was listed here because we already enabled the service. But if you're using the service for the first time, when you come to this service page, you will be able to see an Enable Security Hub button. So you need to click on that button to enable the service. Once that's been done, then Security Hub will be able to automatically, ingest the data from the data source such as Amazon Macie. So after we enable the Security Hub as a service, we still need to come back to the Amazon Macie and then to enable the exporting of the security findings from Amazon Macie to Security Hub. To do that, we need to come to the settings page underneath the Amazon Macie's console, and then we come to the publication of findings. By default, this setting, the publish policy findings to Security Hub, has been checked. We need to check the other checkbox, which is related to publishing the sensitive data findings to Security Hub. So with this checked, Security Hub would be able to have the comprehensive visibility for all these findings data. Once this has been checked, we come here and then to click the save, and we're good to go. So now we have our Security Hub enabled, and also on the other side, we also enabled the Amazon Macie, and then to provide and generate those security findings. And if we come back to the Security Hub console page here, we can see some of the summary information where we can get the general information around the security posture from our account. And this will be the information around, for example, the resources with the most failed security checks. So this refers to the AWS account that we have. And if we scroll down, it also shows the findings by regions. I'm not going into details, but pretty much this tells us the findings numbers associated with the severity level. And if we keep scroll down, there will be some other general information from the inside perspective. What I want to focus on at this point is that because now we would use the Security Hub to visualize the security findings from Amazon Macie. So here, there's a link, right, underneath the latest findings from AWS integrations. We can click on the link. And once we click on the See Findings link, it would redirect us to the findings page underneath the Security Hub. And let's wait for a bit. Okay, it just populated. As we can see here, this page, in terms of the style, it looks very similar as Amazon Macie's and even the Amazon Guard Duty, because all the security finding will be organized in the table format. And here, we can have different severity in the severity columns, right? From high, medium to low, and workflow status, record the state, and so on and so forth. One of the things as we introduced in the part 1 of this video is that we would focus on the filtering, because normally, especially when you are working in the organization environment, you might have multiple AWS accounts and hundreds or even thousands of the security finding that you need to go through. So something that you can use the filter to make your searching and investigation a bit easier. So now I want to search the title. For example, we have the column called the title here, right? Similarly here. And we want to put in the filtering criteria, which is we want to see all these titles equals to block public access settings are disabled for the S3 bucket. Let's apply this finding, and okay, now we filter out this one single finding, right? And this finding actually is exactly the correspond to the title criteria we just set. If we click into it, so on the right hand side it gives us more details around this finding. Let's zoom out a little bit. So you can see in this finding there are the other information that we can see. Apparently it is a high severity finding, which means we need to look into first. And in terms of the types and related findings, let's click into that. The types actually was the software and configuration checks, looking at the configuration settings around our S3 bucket, right? And if we click into the resources, there's actually one S3 bucket that's been impacted. And if we click into this link, it actually redirected us to here, this S3 bucket. And basically the risk, the finding is around the public access being disabled. So if we look into the permission part of this bucket, so underneath the block public access, you can see all the blocking all public access has been off. So it's apparently we need to look into that, because if this part has been set as off, which means this S3 bucket would only be able to rely on the ACL or the bucket policy to deny all the public access, which means that we actually lost one layer of the security guardrail to protect this S3 bucket, right? So we need to look into that. Some of the manual remediation is that we can come to here, we can click the edit. If we click on the edit, and then we can click this checkbox, and then we can save the changes, which means we can block all the public access at the bucket level. And here, let's try to say confirm and confirm, right? So in this case, the block public access was set to be on again, which means in the upcoming Amazon Macie's finding, this one will not be generated as an alert, right? So this is the manual effort to remediate this risk. We just show you how to use the Security Hub and manually remediate the risk. Next, we'll show you how to use the integration between Security Hub, Amazon Macie, EventBridge, and Lambda to do the remediation automatically. So in order to use AWS Security Hub custom actions, you first need to create a custom actions in the Security Hub console. So now we are on the Security Hub console, and we would go to the settings on the left hand side here, and then we select the custom actions, and we need to create the custom actions here. So this is a very advanced feature that we need to use. So let's give it a name, action name, encrypt bucket. So by the name of it, it means whenever there's a bucket that's not encrypted, and then let's take the automatic actions to encrypt the bucket. So here, description is encrypt an S3 bucket with a KMS key, and then custom actions ID, let's say encrypt bucket. Give it a quick name so we can identify it. Let's create a custom actions, right? So for now we have the custom actions. Now let's take a look at the next step, which is related to using the EventBridge. After we create the custom actions in the Security Hub, the next step is we need to create the rules in the EventBridge. So for those of you who might not be familiar with the EventBridge, simply put, this is a managed service from AWS, which make it easy for you to integrate the AWS native service For example, to use the AWS Security Hub event to trigger the Lambda function and then to take the remediation actions. To do that, we need to come to the event bridge console here, and then we go to the rules, and let's create a new rule. Click this button, create a rule, and in the rule name, let's call it Macie custom action rule. Description, trigger this rule from a custom action, right? Event bus, let's use the default one, and let's leave this part as default. Enable the rule on the selected event bus, and the key thing to highlight here is the rule type, because we are triggering this rule whenever there's an event that's matching the pattern. So we choose this one. And if you need to initiate or trigger the action on a regular basis for your use case, then you might be considering to use the schedule pattern. But for now, we chose the rule with an event pattern. Let's go to the next. So in the build event pattern page, we leave the event source as the default value here, event source. We scroll down the sample event. Let's leave it for now. It's optional. Let's focus on the create method. We will use the pattern form, right? In this case, how to create a pattern. Underneath the event pattern, and we need to select AWS services because now we're using AWS Security Hub as the event pattern. Underneath here, we will search the Security Hub. We got Security Hub here, and then event type. Let's see what type we have. We actually have the findings related. Let's do the custom actions, right? Once we select the custom actions, on the right hand side, the event pattern, AWS console automatically generate this pattern for us based on our selections. And one thing we need to select is we actually need to use very specific custom actions, which we just created from the Security Hub. So if we come back to the Security Hub and then we copy this on, which is the event, the custom actions that we just created, which is created the bucket, encrypt the bucket, and then we can come back to the event bridge and then paste it here in the specific custom action on. Let's see. Okay, so this part has been automatically added as well. Great. So now let's do a next. So this page select the target is around selecting the target to receive the event and then to take the action accordingly. In this case, we use the Lambda as a target, so we select the AWS service, which is the default option. Here we select Lambda function, and we already have a Lambda function that we created, which we can show later on. So the name is Macie workshop setup encrypt. So this is the Lambda function which we use to automatically encrypt the S3 bucket. We select this Lambda function, and then for the next, configure version, alias, and additional settings, we leave it as the default option for now. Let's go to the next. So next, in the configure text page, this is optional, so we will leave it as default. Let's go to the next. This is a review page, right? We review everything that we just input. Once it looks good, then we click the create rule. So now we have a rule successfully being created within the event bridge. Let's use this rule to trigger the event and then to take the actions automatically. Before we test to use the Security Hub to trigger the Lambda function and then to remediate the encryption issue on our S3 bucket, let's validate the current S3 bucket's status for the encryption. So if we scroll down a little bit, now we are on the S3 bucket page, and then we are on the property tab. And if we scroll down, underneath the default encryption, we can see the current default encryption was Amazon S3 manage the keys, right? So this is not comply with our target state, which is using the KMS key to encrypt this bucket. What we would do is we go to Security Hub, and then we pretty much need to filter out these findings. And how to do it? We pretty much in the Security Hub findings, we filter the product name to be Macie, and we filter the title and make it start with encryption. So underneath these two filters, we got the one finding, right? And if we scroll to the right hand side, this is the title. Encryption is disabled for the S3 bucket, which is basically not using the KMS key to encrypt this bucket. So if we scroll to the left, we select this finding. Now, because we have configured the Lambda function, we can select the function to remediate this issue. So there is a function encrypt-bucket. If you can recall, this is exactly the action that we defined just now. If we click on that, and there's a green bar saying that successfully send findings to Amazon event. So what happened is that Amazon event would receive this findings data, and then automatically trigger the Lambda function on behalf of the users. With that, if we just go back to the S3 bucket, here we still see the encryption was under the SSE-S3, and if we refresh this page, right, just take a refresh and see what will happen. Just take a couple seconds to wait. Alright, now if we scroll down to the default encryption, we can see basically the encryption has changed to the SSE-KMS, which was using the KMS key to encrypt our S3 bucket. Exactly what we need to put this bucket on, and then to comply with our security policy. So this concludes our demo today. We use the Security Hub to generate a custom actions, and also use the event bridge to trigger that action. And whenever the action has been triggered, there is a Lambda function that will be executed to move our S3 bucket back to the original encryption status, which is using the KMS to encrypt all the data, which would be aligned with our security compliance requirement. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you find it helpful, please give it a like, and welcome to subscribe to my channel. I will see you next time.